If you need to pass the GED but struggle with reading comprehension, then know that I made this video to give you tips, tricks, and strategies that you're going to learn as we work through some practice questions together to hopefully help you pass the GED faster and get a higher score. So please note that I do tend to read on the faster side here, so feel free to pause the video and take all the time you need to read and reread at a pace that's going to work for you. So let's jump in. Looking cautiously about, George Willard arose from his desk in the office of the Winesburg Eagle and went hurriedly out at the back door. The night was warm and cloudy, and although it was not yet 8 o'clock, the alleyway back of the Eagle office was pitch dark. A team of horses tied to a post somewhere in the darkness stamped on the hard-baked ground. A cat sprang from under George Willard's feet and ran away into the night. The young man was nervous. All day he had gone about his work like one dazed by a blow. In the alleyway he trembled as though with fright. What is the setting of the story? So you can pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So initially here, it's in the Winesburg Eagle office, and then George Willard leaves and goes into an alleyway nearby. And it's nighttime here, it's dark out, but it's not quite 8 o'clock. So if you had anything of this nature, then consider that you got the right answer here. And when it comes to what the setting is where the story takes place and also when. And figuring out the setting is really, really important. You may get questions that point blank ask you what is the setting of the story. But whether or not you get a question asking you what the setting is, this is one of the most important pieces to reading comprehension for fiction, and sometimes for nonfiction as well. So always think in your mind when you're reading a story, what is the setting? Sometimes they're going to make it easy and they'll just spell it out right away. Sometimes they don't make it as clear, but this is really important for reading comprehension. Okay, so the next question says, which type of figurative language is the highlighted sentence an example of? So as you can see on screen here, I've highlighted the sentence that reads, all day he had gone about his work like one dazed by a blow. So is this an example of metaphor, simile, personification, or maybe it's answer choice D? So let's have you pause the video if you'd like to, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so the correct answer here is a simile, and a simile is comparing using like or as. So they're saying here that the way that he went about his day was like one dazed by a blow. So maybe you can think of a boxer who, has been hit by a punch and is in a daze. That is what the author is saying George Willard was like when he went throughout his work. A metaphor is a comparison that does not use the words like or the word as. And personification is giving human characteristics to something that is not human. And hopefully nobody picked D here. In the darkness, George Willard walked along the alleyway, going carefully and cautiously. The back doors of the Winesburg stores were open, and he could see men sitting about under the store lamps. In Meyerbaum's Notion store, Mrs. Willie, the saloon keeper's wife, stood by the counter with a basket on her arm. Sid Green, the clerk, was waiting on her. He leaned over the counter and talked earnestly. So your next question is, which of the following is the best inference we can make from the passage above? A. George wants to go to Meyerbaum's Notion store. B. George does not wish to be seen by anyone. C. George does not like Sid Green. Or D. George is voting in a local election. So now is your chance to pause the video, take all the time you need with this, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's talk about this question here. So an inference is basically an educated guess, and you want to make that educated guess based off of, first and foremost, the clues in the passage, but also sometimes you just have to use your own judgment and experience to answer the question here. And basically, a couple tips with inference questions. We do have to read between the lines a little bit. That is kind of the point of an inference question. But sometimes when they put in stuff in the answer choices that were not brought up in the passage, like George voting in a local election, anything like that's not really in the ballpark of what we've talked about in the passage, you can probably just take that out. So I would take D out. Now, what about C? George does not like Sid Green. Well, we don't really see any clues that he doesn't like Sid Green, so I'd probably take that out as well. And also, George wants to go to Meyerbaum's Notion store. So we don't really see any clues to this. So A or C, if you picked one of those choices, then those are things that I would say are in the ballpark, but the best answer here is B. George does not wish to be seen by anyone. And if we look at really the first sentence here, he's walking in the darkness, he's going in the alleyway. So you have to think here, if he's going in an alleyway, he's not walking down the main street, right? It's also dark out, and he's also going carefully and cautiously. So why would he be so careful and cautious and he's walking in the alley? He probably doesn't want to be seen by anybody. So B is the correct answer here. George Willard had set forth upon an adventure. All day he had been trying to make up his mind to go through with the adventure, and now he was acting. In the office of the Winesburg Eagle, he had been sitting since 6 o'clock trying to think. There had been no decision. He had just jumped to his feet, hurried past Will Henderson, who was reading proof in the print shop, and started to run along the alleyway. And just ignore this little red squiggly line here. I'm not sure why my computer put that in there. I right-click that and hit ignore, but it popped back in there somehow magically, so just ignore that. It has nothing to do with the question. And the real question says, which of the following best describes the relationship between George and Will Henderson based on the text above? A. George and Will are enemies. B. George and Will work together. C. George and Will are cousins. Or D. George and Will play on the same baseball team. Alright, so let's have you pause the video if you'd like to. Take all the time you need with this, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so D. Baseball hasn't came up in the passage at all. We haven't talked about baseball. So like I said, sometimes you're going to have to read between the lines to get a question right. But if there's something in an answer choice that's just way out in left field, no pun intended here, that has not been mentioned in the passage, you can probably just take it out. So let's take D out. We'll eliminate that. Now, George and Will might be enemies, so it's possible that they're enemies, but we don't really see any clue except, he's hurrying past Will Henderson, so maybe you'd think, well, he's hurrying past him, so they're enemies, but that's not really the best answer here, right? So we're not just picking an answer that could be true. We're trying to pick which best describes the relationship based on the text. Now, they also could be cousins. We don't see any evidence that they're not cousins. Okay, but this isn't the best choice here because we don't see any evidence that they are cousins, all right? Now, he's reading proof in the print shop, and George runs past him. So we already know that George was working at the Winesburg Eagle office, and then he runs right past Will, basically on his way to get out into the alleyway. So it's hopefully you see here that they probably work together, all right? At least in some capacity, they seem like they work in the same office. So the correct answer here is B. So the method that I like to teach, it's SCCT, Setting, Characters, Conflict, and Theme. And basically, what the two most important things here are the setting and the characters. All right, so the two most important things, in my opinion, for understanding fiction, and sometimes this is true for nonfiction passages as well. It just depends if you have a more kind of story-driven nonfiction passage, then this will apply as well. But figuring out the setting of the story, that's going to help you picture where the story is. It's going to help you make sense of things, and also noting where the setting changes. And also the characters, and keeping track of all the characters is a really, it's kind of a hard skill, especially when the passages have a lot of different characters. But if you can keep track of them, that's going to help your reading comprehension make a giant leap, in my opinion. And conflict and theme are really going to come from if you understand the characters and understand that setting, because the conflict is kind of like the problem that the characters have, and all good stories are going to have some sort of conflict here. And so if you are following the characters and paying attention to the interaction between the two characters, the conflict will usually jump right out at you from that. Now, I can't guarantee it's always going to be that easy, obviously, on your test here. But the thing about characters to note is that some characters are going to be main characters. Those are who you want to pay attention to the most. And other characters are just going to be supporting characters. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay attention to them, but they probably won't ask as many questions about the supporting characters as the main characters. So right now in the story, I would say it's pretty clear that George is the main character of the story. Now, there's other characters that have been introduced. It's not really clear if they are going to be important characters in the story or just supporting characters. Okay, but just keep this in mind. Just remember SCCT, Setting, Characters, Conflict, Theme. And as you're reading, I just recommend you think, what is the setting? Who are the characters? You can even jot down, the names of the major characters and, just write a note or two to help you remember which character is which, and sometimes that's helpful. And like I said, if you have a supporting character, you probably don't need to spend too much time on that person because they might just come into the story once and be gone. And so if you want to, you can pause the video and read the slide. You don't have to. It has nothing to do with the video. I'm just trying to show here that there is a method behind my madness here, although it might not seem like it. So, through street after street went George Willard, avoiding the people who passed. He crossed and recrossed the road. When he passed a street lamp, he pulled his blank down over his face. He did not dare think. In his mind there was a fear, but it was a new kind of fear. He was afraid the adventure on which he had set out would be spoiled, that he would lose courage and turn back. Alright, so your next question is, which word most likely fits in the blank above? Is it A, shoe, B, hat, C, watch, or D, pocket? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer here is B, hat. And I've tried to make these closed deletion questions more and more progressively harder throughout the video. And so this one here, you just would have to think, what could you pull down over a face, right? You probably are not going to pull a watch or a pocket or a shoe over the face, but the hat's right there, all right? A hat is going to be on your head, so that could be pulled down over the face. So B is the correct answer here. George Willard found Louise Trunnion in the kitchen of her father's house. She was washing dishes by the light of a kerosene lamp. There she stood behind the screen door in the little shed-like kitchen at the back of the house. George Willard stopped by a picket fence and tried to control the shaking of his body. Only a narrow potato patch separated him from the adventure. Question: what do you think? It should say, why do you think George is shaking? So there's no right or wrong answer here necessarily. This is just to help you practice making a prediction. So think about what you know about George and the event so far and just think, why do you think George is shaking here? So let's have you pause the video and you can just think about it in your head, or you could also write it down on a sheet of paper if you want to, but I'll let you try this question. So a couple ideas I have, maybe there is a romantic thing here, or maybe George wants there to be a romantic thing here. Maybe it's Louise that, wants the romance. We don't know here. But, it's possible that maybe he's going to ask her out on a date or something like that, and that's why he's so nervous. Or maybe he has some kind of bad news to give Louise. We don't know. They also could just be friends, and maybe George is going off on this big adventure, and he wants Louise to come away with him. There's anything here that, seems plausible would be a correct answer here. These are just three ideas that I had. And so, this is just to help you think, pausing and asking questions as you read. You obviously don't want to do it for too long, right? Or you're just going to waste that time. But just processing, anything you can do to process that text on a deeper level is going to help you comprehend better. So just pausing every now and then and just thinking about what you're reading, it will help your reading comprehension. 5 blank passed before he felt sure enough of himself to call to her. Louise, oh Louise, he called. The cry stuck in his throat. His voice became a hoarse whisper. Louise Trunnion came out across the potato patch, holding the dishcloth in her hand. How do you know I want to go out with you? She said sulkily. What makes you so sure? So the question says, which of the following words most likely fits in the blank above? Is it A, dollars? Is it B, cents? Is it C, minutes? Or is it D, years? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer here is C, minutes. Now, years would be that would be a very long time to be just waiting outside of the house. So the correct answer here is C. So hopefully that's clear. So this video's champion shoutout goes to Mandy, who says, if you were reading this today is August 2nd, 2023, and I take the GED math test today, please pray I pass. It's life-changing for me to provide better for my kids. Now, I'm a little late to this. I didn't see this comment till now. It's past August 2nd, 2023 now. But, I'm not sure how Mandy made out, but I'm sure we're all cheering for Mandy, everyone watching this right now. And, this is really what Test Prep Champions is all about. Mandy says that she wants to provide better for her kids, and that's what this is all about, is helping you move ahead to get on bigger and better things. I say that all the time in my videos, but that's because that is what my mission is. That's why I repeat that so often. And I really do believe that the GED is a stepping stone to move ahead to a better job. It can open the door for you to go to college and then get a better job after you're done with school. And some people pass the GED test and go on to the military too, whatever your goal happens to be. This is really what it's about, is having a better life for yourself, but also for your family as well. Okay, let's switch gears here and we're going to look at a different passage. The towers of Zenith aspired above the morning mist, austere towers of steel and cement and limestone, sturdy as cliffs and delicate as silver rods. They were neither citadels nor churches, but frankly and beautifully office buildings. Zenith is most likely which of the following? A. A state forest. B. A town or city. C. A river or a lake. Or D. A statue. So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer is B. A town or a city. And beautifully office buildings. Hopefully that's kind of a clue that we're talking about a town or city here. The mist took pity on the fretted structures of earlier generations. The post office, with its shingle-tortured mansard, I think is how you say that word, I'm not sure. The red brick minarets of hulking old houses, factories with stingy and sooted windows, wooden tenements colored like mud. The city was full of such grotesqueries, but the clean towers were thrusting them from the business center, and on the further hills were shining new houses, homes. They seemed for laughter and tranquility. Okay, so that word that I can't pronounce, I think it's mansard, that seems logical to me. Is that a jar, a roof, a car, or D box? And don't worry about this D for some reason. My computer made this bigger. Maybe I hit the wrong key. Don't assume D is the right answer. I'm not sure why the letter D is bigger than the rest. So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Alright, so the correct answer here is roof. So hopefully you got that right, and if not, great job just for trying, and if you got that right, great work. Over a concrete bridge fled a limousine of long, sleek hood and noiseless engine. These people in evening clothes were returning from an all-night rehearsal of a little theater blank, an artistic adventure considerably illuminated by champagne. Below the bridge curved a railroad, a maze of green and crimson lights. The New York Flyer boomed past, and 20 lines of polished steel leaped into the glare. So your next question, which of the following words most likely fits in the blank above? Is it A, movie? Is it B, play? Is it C, book? Or D, radio? So now's your chance to pause the video, take all the time you need with this, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer here is play. So if you got that right, great job. If not, great work for sticking so far into the video. In one of the skyscrapers, the wires of the Associated Press were closing down. The telegraph operators warily raised their celluloid eye shades after a night of talking with Paris. Through the building crawled the scrub women, yawning, their old shoes slapping. The dawn mist spun away. Queues of men with lunchboxes clumped toward the immensity of new factories, sheets of glass and hollow tile, glittering shops where 5,000 men worked beneath one roof, pouring out the honest wares that would be sold up the Euphrates and across the veldt. The whistles rolled out in greeting, a chorus cheerful as the April dawn. The song of labor in a city built, it seemed, for giants. Which of the following is the best inference we can make from the paragraph above? A. Zenith is a small town. B. Zenith is a vacation destination for hiking and camping. C. Zenith is a big city. Or D. Not many people live in Zenith. So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So in this case here, we see that the word city is in answer choice C, and that matches up to the word in the last sentence here in the passage. And the correct answer here is C. So it won't always be this easy on your test, but just pay attention when you see words and answer choices that also show up in the passage. There was nothing of the giant in the aspect of the man who was beginning to awaken on the sleeping porch of a Dutch colonial house in that residential district of Zenith known as Floral Heights. His name was George F. Babbitt. He was 46 years old now in April 1920, and he was nothing in particular, neither butter, nor shoes, nor poetry, but he was nimble in the calling of selling houses for more than people could afford to pay. So your next question, which of the following is true? A. Zenith is a place in Floral Heights, or B. Floral Heights is a place in Zenith. So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so B is the correct answer here. It says the residential district of Zenith known as Floral Heights. Okay, so now let me talk about a strategy called rap paraphrasing, and this is not a strategy that I came up with by any means, but this is a strategy that there's a lot of research backing it here, and there's a lot of benefits to it. I'm not going to take the time to read these right now, but just know that this is a proven method. I can't guarantee it's going to work the same for everybody, of course, but this has been used by many people here. And so it works like this. So the R stands for read the paragraph. A stands for ask what's the main idea and two supporting ideas. And P stands for put it in your own words. Now, if you're wondering what's a main idea and what are two supporting ideas, well, let me tell you. The main idea is the main point of the paragraph. Now, this is sometimes just found in one sentence, and repetition of ideas or words throughout the paragraph can also be a clue to what the main idea is. But one really powerful trick for figuring out what's the main idea is to read a paragraph and think, what title would I give this paragraph? All right, what would I call this paragraph? And sometimes that question kind of clues you into what the most important idea was of that paragraph. And supporting ideas are facts and examples and things that support that main idea. So the main idea is like the table, and the supporting ideas are like the legs that support that table. So paraphrasing is simply just putting things into your own words, right? So imagine that you've watched a TV show and then your friend says, "Hey, I missed that show last night. What happened?" And you explain what happened in that show or movie in your own words. That's paraphrasing right there. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and we're going to look at a different passage, and we're going to look at we're going to do some practice with paraphrasing throughout this part of the video. Buck did not read the newspapers, or he would have known that trouble was brewing, not alone for himself, but for every Tidewater dog, strong of muscle and with warm, long hair, from Puget Sound to San Diego. Because men, groping in the Arctic darkness, had found a yellow metal, and because steamship and transportation companies were booming the find, thousands of men were rushing into the Northland. These men wanted dogs, and the dogs they wanted were heavy dogs, with strong muscles by which to toil, and furry coats to protect them from the frost. So, question, why are the men rushing into the Northland? So think about it, reread if you need to, and then please put your answer in your own words. So basically, summarize why are the men rushing into the Northland. So you can do it in your head, you can write it down if you want, you can comment down below if you'd like to, whatever's easiest for you, but we'll pause the video, and whenever you're ready, unpause it, and we'll talk about this. So basically, if we just boil this down to the main reason, it's because they're looking for the yellow metal, which I would assume is gold. Okay, so there's someone stumbled across this yellow metal that's very valuable, worth a lot of money, and basically people are rushing into the Northland to search for it, all right? And the part of the sentence where it says, because steamship and transportation companies were booming the find, that sentence is a little confusing. That part of the sentence is a little confusing, and, these older, on the test, you're going to get a lot of, older style of writing, and so I tried to pick passages that are going to reflect kind of the older style of writing that you might see on your test so that you're used to seeing it. But this is essentially what they're doing, and hopefully you had something like this as your answer. Okay. Buck lived at a big house in the sun-kissed Santa Clara Valley, Judge Miller's place it was called. It stood back from the road, half hidden among the trees, through which glimpses could be caught of the wide, cool veranda that ran around its four sides. The blank was approached by graveled driveways, which wound about through wide-spreading lawns and under the interlacing of tall poplars. At the rear, things were on even a more spacious scale than at the front. Which of the following words most likely fits into the blank above? Is it A, house? Is it B, horse? Is it C, dog? Or is it D, water? Let's have you pause the video if you'd like to. You can try this out. And whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer here is a house. If you got that right, great job. If not, great job for trying. And especially, either way, thank you for staying this far into the video. So the passage goes on. And over this great word that starts with a D, Buck ruled, where he was born, and here he had lived the 4 years of his life. It was true there were other dogs. There could not but be other dogs on so vast a place, but they did not count. So that word that starts with a D most likely means which of the following. Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so the correct answer here is A. And like I said, this is an older story here, and I tried to pick older stories for these videos because I know that I want to get you ready for the kind of older style of writing, and a lot of words that we don't normally say today are found in these older passages. And this word here, it's actually, to my knowledge, it's pronounced domain. I would never have guessed that. I would have thought it was like demens or something like that. But from my quick 2 seconds of research that I did into this word, I think it is pronounced domain. So I didn't read the word domain out. I just said somewhere that starts with a D because I thought if I said the word domain, that might be too easy of a clue that this is house. But basically, the correct answer here is A. Okay. But Buck was neither house dog nor kennel dog. The whole realm was his. He plunged into the swimming tank or went hunting with the judge's sons. He escorted Molly and Alice, the judge's daughters, on long twilight or early morning rambles. On wintry nights, he lay at the judge's feet. Before the roaring library fire, he carried the judge's grandsons on his back or rolled them in the grass, and guarded their footsteps through wild adventures down to the fountain in the stable yard, and even beyond where the paddocks were and the berry patches. Alright, which of the following is false? A. Molly and Alice are the judge's daughters. B. The judge did not have any sons. C. Buck could carry the judge's grandsons on his back. Or D. None of the above. So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So these questions here, sometimes to get these questions right, you just kind of have to search back through the passage, and hopefully you'll see the details here that are going to lead you to the answer. And in this case, I've just highlighted this part here, judge's sons, and the judge did have sons, so that's why B is false. Now it's time for me to introduce this video's Champions Challenge passage, and in my opinion, this passage is the hardest out of all the passages to understand and comprehend in this video. You might disagree, let me know down below, so let me give you a shot to try that now. I was born in the year 1632 in the city of York, of a good family, though not of that country, my father being a foreigner of Bremen who settled first at Hull. He got a good estate by merchandise, and leaving off his trade, lived afterwards at York, from whence he had married my mother, whose relations were named Robinson, a very good family in that country, and from whom I was called Robinson Krautsnauer. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, so if that's your last name, I do apologize for pronouncing it wrong, but by the usual corruption of words in England, we are now called, nay, we call ourselves and write our name Crusoe, and so my companions always called me. So which of the following is most likely false? A. The narrator's mother is from Bremen. B. The narrator's last name was not originally Crusoe. C. The narrator was born in 1632. Or D. None of the above. So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's talk about this here. So we already know that the author's original last name was this last name with a K, which I can't pronounce. And again, sorry if that's your last name and I pronounced it wrong. And it was changed to Crusoe, so B is correct, meaning it, or B is true, I should say, meaning it's not false. So the narrator was born in 1632. That's also just kind of given to us right away in the first sentence here. So what about A? The narrator's mother is from Bremen. Well, it tells us that the father lived afterwards at York, from whence he had married my mother. So we would assume most likely that the mother was from York. It's possible she was from Bremen, but since it's asking us which the following is most likely false, well, if the father lived afterwards at York, from whence he had married my mother, it seems to make sense that the mother would have been from York. So A is the right answer here. Being the third son of the family and not bred to any trade, my head began to be filled very early with rambling thoughts. My father had given me a competent share of learning, as far as house education and a country free school generally go, and designed me for the law, but I would be satisfied with nothing but going to sea, and my inclination to this led me so strongly against the will, nay, the commands of my father, and against all the entreaties and persuasions of my mother and her friends, that there seemed to be something fatal in that propensity of nature tending directly to the life of misery which was to befall me. Okay, so here's your task. Please summarize this paragraph in 1 to 3 sentences. Now, in your summary, you don't need to give too much detail. Just what is the big idea? What is, if you were going to take this paragraph right here and explain to a friend like the main ideas of what happened in just a sentence or 2 or 3 sentences, how would you do it? You can do it in your head. You can write it down on a sheet of paper. You can leave it in the comments if you want to, whatever's easiest for you. So let's have you try that now. Okay, So basically, the idea here that I'm seeing is that the narrator's father wanted him to work for the law. We're not sure, since this is an older passage here, it's not 100% clear. Maybe his dad was setting him up to be like a lawyer, or maybe some kind of a police person as well, a policeman. It's not 100% sure, but his dad wanted him to do something with the law. But the narrator chose to go to sea instead. So his dad kind of wanted him to go in a certain direction with his career. It also says that, his mother and other friends also didn't want him to go to sea, but the narrator was just obsessed with going to the sea instead of what his parents and friends wanted him to do. So as long as you got something along that nature, I'm sure it's like a 1 in a million chance you wrote the exact same thing I did here, I'm sure. But as long as you got something along that nature, then consider that you got the question right. So it goes on to say, my father, a wise and grave man, gave me serious and excellent counsel against what he foresaw was my design. He called me one morning into his chamber where he was confined by the gout and expostulated very warmly with me upon this subject. He asked me what reasons, more than a mere wandering inclination I had for leaving father's house in my native country, where I might be well introduced, and had a prospect of raising my fortune by application and industry with a life of ease and pleasure. So the word inclination above most likely means which of the following. Is the answer A, B, C, or D? Now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer here is A. And let me give you a quick tip. You may have noticed this in other questions, but if you're ever stuck on the test and you have to guess, hopefully you won't have to guess. Hopefully you're going to be able to figure out the answers. But if you ever do have to guess, I recommend guessing the longest answer choice. All right. And the reason this is true for history or social studies can be true in science as well. It's not always going to be correct. There's no guarantee this is going to work. But if you have to guess, I would pick the longest answer choice. And the reason that's true is because oftentimes the people who write the test, what they do is they will have to write the real answer choice. And that will be the longest one. So they'll start by writing answer choice A here, and that's going to be the longest sentence. And then, they're checking their watches and they want to go home and they don't care that much. They just kind of want to get their paycheck and go home. So they don't put that much effort into writing the other answer choices a lot of the time. So that's why, you'll have one answer choice that's very long and that's longer and more specific and more detailed. And then a couple other junk answer choices that are only like a word or two. Okay, that does happen sometimes. Again, that's not always going to be correct. Okay, but if you do have to guess, I would guess the longest answer choice here, and that's why. Simply because sometimes they'll put more effort into writing that one, and then they just don't care as much about the other ones, and the other answer choices end up being short. But anyway, A is the correct answer here, and, hey, if I took up your time with that rant, I do apologize for that. But hey, if you made it this far into the video, then, you're doing a really good job. But being one day at Hull, where I went casually and without any purpose of making an elopement at that time, but I say being there, and one of the companions being about to sail to London in his father's ship, and prompting me to go with them with the common allurement of seafaring men, that it should cost me nothing of my passage, I consulted neither father nor mother any more, nor so much as sent them word of it. Which of the following is correct based on the paragraph above? A. The narrator left to sail to London after telling his father and mother. B. The narrator left to sail to London without telling his father or mother. Or C. The narrator had to pay a lot of money to board the ship. Or D. The ship belongs to the narrator's father. So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so another tip for guessing, and again, hopefully you don't have to guess. Hopefully you'll be able to figure out the questions on your test without guessing. But we all know that sometimes if you get stumped, especially with that time ticking down, you might have to make a guess or two here or there. Hopefully you won't, but you never know. And there's no guarantee that this is going to work either. So don't think that this is like a magic bullet that's always going to work, but sometimes it will. Notice that you've got A and B. See how they both are saying opposite things. So A, the narrator left to sail to London after telling his father and mother. Or B, the narrator left to sail to London without telling his father or mother. So these are both saying opposite things that can't both be true, right? So how could he have left after telling his father or mother? But also, like, he couldn't, it's either he left after telling them or he left without telling them. It can't be both ways. He either told them or he didn't. So whenever you see two answer choices that are saying things that completely contradict each other, that are essentially opposites, okay, chances are one of those is going to be the right answer. So if I had to guess on this, I would take out C and D, and, I would guess either A or B if I had to on this question, all right? Now, we don't want to guess though, right? We want to get the answers correct based off of our reading comprehension skills, but I'm just throwing that tip in there if you ever have to. But the right answer here is B, and this is pretty much, it says right here, I consulted neither father nor mother, so it pretty much just tells us straight up in the passage. Read the title of the passage carefully and look at any photos and captions beneath the image, because sometimes they'll sneak in there the answers to a question or two. I know sometimes it's easy to get going so fast and you have the stress with that time ticking down, and sometimes students they skip over reading the title and they ignore the pictures, but just take the time to do that because it can save you some answers.